we've already set up the code behind for our edit inquiry page. So I'm in edit.inquirypage.ts TypeScript. So we've got this set up. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to set up the interface, which as you'll see just at the moment has its default interface, so that we can connect what the user sees with the logic behind the page, so that it can interact with this and the other components of the application. So here we are in the HTML for the edit inquiry page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the two components as before and explain what it is that's going into each. So we've got the header and we've got the content. Those are the two components. And the header is just what you see here. We've got the absolutely typical structure. So we've already actually set up our navigation to the inquiry page. Edit inquiry. So you can see that that's what's being displayed there. So it's very easy for us to move from here and change these things that we see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy stuff off my clipboard and I'm going to replace the components as we go through. So we've got the header, which is the outer structure. That's this thing that we see here. We've given it a color of danger, the same as the home page. And I've now got a different button. So we've set up a buttons container, if you wish, for a collection of buttons. This one only has one, but you have to provide a collection to hold a button. And the button I've put in there is what's called the ion back button, which has a sense of going back to a desired route. So the reason why we do this is we don't just trust the fact that the history will take the people back to the home page, because what can happen is that people in another page can refresh their browser, because it's a browser, and it would then lose the sense of the history. So it can't just use the navigation to the last page seen, because that will have been gone from the records that are held of the navigation that's taken place. So I've now got a different title. I've spaced the two words, edit inquiry. What we're going to do is for this page is we're actually going to use the same page for editing existing inquiries and also to create new inquiries. Both of those have the same fields, the same data items that we've got in our interface. Both have to deal with those, so we can use the same structure for both. There are benefits and drawbacks to that approach, but I think the benefits outweigh them. So that's what we've got for the header. So what I'll do is I will Control S and it will recompile. So it's recompiled, and what I will do now is refresh the browser, because as you know, that's the only way I can get it. So when I go here, edit inquiry is on two separate words, and my back button takes me back to the home page. So we've successfully implemented that. So next I'm going to deal with the content section, and I'm just going to replace what's there with the code that's on my clipboard and go through each item line by line. We have three controls to deal with and a button that will allow us to interact with the data. We've got a customer field, a phone field and a product field. At the moment we've set those up to be item controls, and each item control has a label with a position of floating, and that's cool because what happens is the label is collapsed and moves out of the way when you give it focus, and the label says customer. So the next line of code says that for that you're going to have a type, an input box, if you wish, but you don't see a box, of type text. And then this is a really interesting piece of code. And what that is it's saying that we are going to use the Angular model, NG model, which provides us with what's called two-way binding. It means that in the interface, the data that's displayed in the field here is linked to the data field here. So if it changes here by coming from a database or something, it will be reflected back in the label and the input box, or the input box here. And similarly, if we give it new data in the input box, then what will happen is that will be linked in two-way binding to the underlying data structure. Because what's happening is that this object, which matches the interface for an inquiry, is going to be what is stored. Our save inquiry function here is going to link back to the service that saves the data that we've got for the current inquiry in the storage. It could be that it's updating, or it could be that it's saving, and we'll deal with that later on because that presents its own particular problem. So let's go back here. So that's the same for all three of the data fields: customer, phone and product. Exactly the same structure, but reflecting the linking that we've got. So that ng model, square brackets with parentheses inside, and then ng model, is the directive that says to give us the two-way binding from inquiry.product, which is the underlying thing before, and whatever is in the control that uses it. Then we've got our button, and our button is just a standard button, nothing much to see here. Ion button, color equals light. We've got a click event, and the click event is going to call save to do, so that should be save inquiry, so I've got that. Save inquiry, which is going to be linked to the method in the TS behind. Expand is full, that means it goes across the whole width, and it has text in the button which says save inquiry. So that's what we do there. So once again, I'm going to save this file and recompile the application. So it's compiled. So let's just refresh the browser and see what we've got. So back on the home page, go to the edit page, and we've now got the three fields. You can see what I mean about the floating button, and our save inquiry button is here. It doesn't do anything yet, of course, but that's us successfully set up the edit inquiry page, and that's the same page that we will use for adding a new inquiry in due course. So that's us set up, and we can start to deal with how we deal with the data on this page.